The universe was vast, endless, and filled with countless stars that twinkled like tiny diamonds scattered across the night sky. Among these stars, a species called the Varnock had been watching Earth for centuries. They were not human, of course, but they were intelligent, far more advanced than any civilization humanity had ever imagined. Their ships glided silently through space, powered by technology so sophisticated it seemed like magic to anyone who didn't understand it. For years, the Varnock had observed Earth from afar, studying its people without ever making contact. To them, humans appeared chaotic, disorganized, and weak. But something about Earth puzzled them. Deep within their command ship, floating somewhere near the edge of what they called human territory, Commander Rillick stared at a holographic projection of the blue planet below. His sharp eyes scanned the swirling clouds and green continents, searching for answers. Why had no other alien race dared to enter this region of space? What made Earth so special? He turned to his second-in-command, Kale, a younger pilot whose cautious nature often clashed with Rillick's boldness. "What do you think, Kale?" Rillick asked, his voice low but commanding. "Why does every species avoid this place?" Kale hesitated before responding. He wasn't sure how to put his thoughts into words. "Maybe there's something we don't know yet," he said finally. "We've seen their wars, their struggles. Maybe they're hiding something powerful," Rillick snorted. "Powerful? Look at them. They fight among themselves constantly. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours. If anything, they should fear us." Kale didn't argue further. He knew better than to challenge Rillick directly, especially when the commander was in one of his stubborn moods. Still, something about Earth unsettled him, the way the planet seemed almost alive. It wasn't just the oceans or forests. It was something deeper, harder to explain. Whatever it was, it gave him an uneasy feeling in the pit of his stomach. Meanwhile, on Earth, life went on as usual. Most people were completely unaware that they were being watched from above. In a quiet corner of Colorado, Daniel Carter sat hunched over his desk, surrounded by papers and computer screens. Daniel was a scientist, though not the kind who worked in flashy labs or appeared on television. He preferred solitude, spending long hours analyzing data collected from satellites orbiting the planet. Today, however, something unusual caught his attention. "Lavra!" Daniel called out, leaning back in his chair. "You need to see this?" Lavra Bennett poked her head into the room, her dark hair pulled back into a messy bun. She carried a cup of coffee in one hand and raised an eyebrow at Daniel's excitement. "What is it now?" she asked, walking over to join him. Daniel pointed at the screen. "Look at these readings. There's some kind of energy field surrounding Earth. I've never seen anything like it." Lavra leaned closer, squinting at the numbers scrolling across the monitor. "Are you saying there's a force field around the planet?" "I think so," Daniel replied. "It's invisible, but it's definitely there. And get this, it seems to repel anything that tries to cross it." Lavra frowned. "Repel? Like alien ships?" Daniel nodded. "Exactly. That would explain why no one's ever invaded us. This field might be protecting us." Lavra took a sip of her coffee, considering the implications. "If that's true, then whoever or whatever created this field must be incredibly advanced. Do you think it's natural? Or did someone build it?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But if we can figure it out, we might finally understand why Earth has stayed safe all these years." While Daniel and Lavra dug deeper into their discovery, thousands of miles away, William Hayes sat alone in his living room, staring at a map of the stars pinned to the wall. William was a retired military strategist, known for his sharp mind and strategic brilliance during his time in service. Now, in his late 60s, he spent most of his days reading books about astronomy and pondering the mysteries of the universe. Something had been nagging at him lately, a sense that something big was about to happen. His granddaughter, Emma, burst into the room, holding a tablet in her hands. "Grandpa, you have to look at this," she said breathlessly. Emma was in her mid-20s, bright-eyed and full of energy. She worked at NASA, where she analyzed data sent back from probes exploring the far reaches of the solar system. Her relationship with William was close, built on shared curiosity and mutual respect. What is it? William asked, gesturing for her to sit down. Emma handed him the tablet. There's unusual activity coming from deep space. It's faint, but it's moving toward us fast. William studied the graph displayed on the screen. His brow furrowed as he processed the information. How fast are we talking? Too fast, Emma replied. It's not natural. I think it's a ship, or maybe several ships. William's heart sank. He had always suspected that humanity wasn't alone in the universe, but he hadn't expected visitors quite so soon. Do you think they're hostile? I don't know, Emma admitted. But we need to warn someone. Whoever they are, they'll be here within days. Back aboard the Varnic flagship, tensions were rising. Rilek had ordered the fleet to move closer to Earth, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious energy field. As they approached the boundary of human territory, strange things began to happen. Lights flickered on the control panels, and the hum of the engines grew louder, almost deafening. Alarms blared throughout the ship, causing panic among the crew. What's going on? Rilek demanded, gripping the edge of his console. Kale frantically typed commands into his terminal, trying to stabilize the systems. Something's interfering with our equipment, he reported. It's like the field is pushing back against us. Pushing back? Rilek repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. Against us? Impossible. Despite his bravado, even Rilek couldn't deny the evidence in front of him. The closer they got to Earth, the more erratic their technology became. Weapons failed to charge, communication signals distorted, and navigation systems went haywire. It was as if the planet itself was resisting their presence. Kale glanced nervously at his commander. Sir, maybe we should reconsider. This doesn't feel right. Reconsider? Rilek snapped. We didn't come all this way just to turn back because of some glitch. Keep moving forward. As the Varnic pressed onward, Daniel and Lavra raced to share their findings with Emma and William. They met in a small conference room at NASA headquarters where the air buzzed with urgency. Daniel explained the energy field in detail, while Lavra added her theories about its possible origins. It's tied to human emotions, Daniel suggested. Not just anger or fear, but hope, love, determination, all the things that make us human. Emma listened intently, her mind racing. If that's true, then the field isn't just a shield. It's a reflection of who we are. William nodded. Slowly, and if the Varnic try to attack, they'll trigger the strongest response yet. We need to prepare for whatever happens next. No one spoke for a moment. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the room. Humanity was about to face its first real test against an alien threat, and whether they succeeded or failed depended entirely on forces they barely understood. Far above, the Varnic fleet continued its approach, oblivious to the storm brewing. Beneath them, on Earth, billions of lives hung in the balance, unaware of the danger looming overhead. And somewhere in between, the protective barrier stood firm, guarding the planet with a power born not from machines, but from the hearts and minds of those who called it home. The Varnic fleet hovered at the edge of human territory, their ships trembling under the strain of the mysterious energy field. Alarms continued to blare, and sparks flew from control panels as systems failed one by one. Commander Rilek paced back and forth on the bridge, his sharp features twisted in frustration. He refused to believe that a species as primitive as humanity could possess technology capable of resisting the Varnic's superior advancements. This is impossible. Rilek barked, slamming his fist against the nearest console. How can this barrier stop us? We are the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Kale, standing nearby, flinched at the sound but kept his focus on the readings in front of him. The young pilot wasn't convinced that brute force was the answer. Something about the barrier felt alive. It wasn't just blocking them, it was reacting to their presence. Every time they pushed harder, the interference grew stronger, almost as if the field was learning. Sir, Kale said cautiously, choosing his words carefully, maybe we're going about this the wrong way. If the barrier is tied to human emotions, perhaps aggression is making it worse. Rilek spun around, glaring at Kale. Are you suggesting we show weakness? Surrender before we even try? No, sir, Kale replied quickly, lowering his gaze. I'm just saying that maybe understanding the humans will help us find a way through. If the barrier is connected to them, then studying their behavior might give us an advantage. Rylak snorted in disbelief. Humans are chaotic and unpredictable. What could we possibly learn from them? Before Kale could respond, another wave of interference rippled through the ship. Lights flickered, and several crew members stumbled as the floor vibrated beneath their feet. One of the engineers shouted over the noise, "Commander, the engines are overheating. We can't keep pushing like this." Rylak clenched his jaw, clearly torn between his desire to charge ahead and the reality of their situation. Finally he growled, "Fine, pull back for now. But only until we figure out how to break through. I won't let some invisible wall stand in our way." As the Varnik fleet retreated slightly, the tension aboard the ships eased for now. Kale took the opportunity to review the data they had collected so far. Strange symbols began appearing on their monitors, glowing faintly against the dark backdrop of space. At first they seemed random, but as Kale stared at them, he realized they formed patterns that resembled words. "Commander," Kale called out hesitantly, "you need to see this." Rylak stalked over, his eyes narrowing as he studied the screen. "What is it?" "I think it's a message," Kale explained. "It's not in any language I recognize, but it seems deliberate. Look at the repetition. It's trying to communicate with us." Rylak leaned closer, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he straightened up and barked an order. "Translate it. If this is some kind of trick, I want to know what they're planning." Kale nodded and got to work, though he doubted the message was a deception. There was something earnest about it, almost pleading. As the translation program ran, fragments of meaning began to emerge. "Turn back. Leave. Do not harm," Rylak scoffed when he read the results. A warning from whom? These humans couldn't have sent this. "They don't even know we're here." "They must," Kale argued softly. "Or else why would the barrier react so strongly to our presence? Maybe they've been preparing for this moment for centuries." Rylak waved him off dismissively. "Enough speculation. Focus on finding a weakness in the field. We didn't come all this way to be scared off by a few glowing letters." On Earth, Emma Hayes sat in her office at NASA, staring at the latest satellite readings. Her grandfather, William, stood beside her, leaning heavily on his cane. Both of them looked exhausted, their faces pale from lack of sleep. For days, they had been tracking the Varnik fleet's movements, piecing together clues about their intentions. "They're still holding back," Emma said, pointing to a cluster of red dots on the monitor. "But they're testing the barrier?" "It's like they're probing for weaknesses," William nodded grimly. "They'll keep pushing until they find one or until the barrier pushes back hard enough to make them reconsider." Emma sighed, rubbing her temples. "We need to warn people. If the Varnik decide to attack, we won't have much time to prepare." William placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "And what do you suggest we tell them? That aliens are coming and all we have to protect us is some invisible shield? They'll panic." Emma knew he was right. Most people wouldn't understand the significance of the energy field or trust that it would hold. She glanced at the clock, realizing it was almost time for her meeting with Daniel and Lavra. The two scientists had promised to share their latest findings about the barrier's connection to human emotions. When Emma and William arrived at the conference room, Daniel and Lavra were already there, huddled over a stack of papers. Lavra looked up as they entered, her face flushed with excitement. "We think we've figured it out," she said without preamble. "The barrier isn't just a physical force, it's powered by human emotion. Not just individual feelings, but collective ones. Hope, courage, love, all of it feeds into the field, making it stronger." Daniel nodded, picking up where she left off. "That's why it reacts so strongly to threats. When someone tries to harm Earth, the barrier amplifies the emotions of everyone affected. It's like the planet itself fights back." Emma stared at them, her mind racing. "So if the Varnik attack, the barrier will respond based on how humanity feels about it." Exactly, Daniel confirmed. If we stay united and focused, the barrier will be nearly impenetrable. But if we fall into fear or chaos, it might weaken. William stroked his chin thoughtfully. Then we need to rally the people. Remind them of what makes us strong, not just as individuals, but as a species. Emma nodded, determination replacing her earlier uncertainty. We'll start by reaching out to world leaders. If we can coordinate a global response, maybe we can turn this threat into an opportunity. Back aboard the Varnic flagship, Kale found himself unable to shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. While the rest of the crew focused on repairing damaged systems, he quietly recorded everything he had observed about the barrier and its strange messages. He shared his findings with a few trusted colleagues, hoping to gain allies who shared his concerns. One of these colleagues, a technician named Syrah, listened intently as Kale explained his theory. "You really think the humans created this field?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Kale admitted. "But it's clear they're connected to it somehow. And if we keep pushing, we might provoke something we can't handle." Syrah frowned, glancing nervously toward the bridge where Rillick was issuing orders. "If the commander finds out you're questioning him, he'll have you thrown in the brig." "I know," Kale said grimly. "But I'd rather risk punishment than lead us into disaster." As the hours passed, the mood aboard the Varnic ships grew increasingly tense. Crew members whispered among themselves, speculating about the nature of the barrier and whether continuing the mission was worth the cost. Even those loyal to Rillick began to question his judgment as more systems malfunctioned and tempers flared. Meanwhile, on Earth, preparations were underway. Emma worked tirelessly to draft a message that could unite humanity without causing widespread panic. With William's guidance, she crafted a speech emphasizing resilience, compassion, and the power of working together. Governments around the world agreed to broadcast the message simultaneously, ensuring maximum impact. At the same time, Daniel and Lava conducted experiments to better understand the barrier's mechanics. They discovered that certain emotional states produce stronger reactions than others. Acts of kindness, creativity, and selflessness seemed to bolster the field, while anger and hatred disrupted its stability. "This changes everything," Lavara sighed, her voice filled with awe. "The barrier isn't just protecting us, it's teaching us, it's showing us what truly matters." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe the reason no species has ever entered human territory is because they weren't ready to face what we represent." As night fell across Earth, billions of people tuned in to hear Emma's message. Screens lit up in homes, offices, and public spaces, displaying her calm yet determined face. Behind her stood William, offering silent support to everyone listening. Emma began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "We are facing a challenge unlike any we've encountered before, but we are not alone. Together we have built something extraordinary, a shield born from our hopes, dreams, and shared humanity. Whatever happens next, let us remember what makes us strong. Let us act with courage, compassion, and unity, because in doing so, we prove that no force in the universe can break us." Her words resonated deeply, sparking a wave of solidarity across the globe. People reached out to loved ones, shared stories of hope, and vowed to stand together. In cities and villages alike, candles were lit, songs were sung, and prayers were offered. Humanity braced itself, drawing strength from the connections that bound them. Above, the Varnic watched in stunned silence as Earth transformed before their eyes. Lights flickered across the planet's surface, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with life. The barrier shimmered brighter than ever, radiating warmth and resolve. For the first time, Rillick felt a flicker of doubt. What are they do? The Varnic fleet hovered silently at the edge of human territory, their ships bathed in the faint glow of Earth's protective barrier. Commander Rillick stood on the bridge, his arms crossed tightly over his chest as he stared at the shimmering wall of energy that separated them from the planet below. His mind raced with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, he was furious that a species as seemingly insignificant as humanity could resist the might of the Varnic. On the other hand, he couldn't ignore the nagging doubt creeping into his thoughts. The barrier wasn't just blocking their advance. It was responding to their presence in ways that defied logic. Every attempt to breach it had failed spectacularly, and now, after hearing Kale's theories, Relek found himself questioning whether brute force was the right approach. Kale, meanwhile, was growing bolder. He had spent hours reviewing the strange symbols that continued to appear on their monitors, each message clearer than the last. Turn back. Do not harm. You are unwelcome here. At first, Kale had kept these discoveries to himself, sharing them only with a few trusted crew members. But as the situation worsened, he realized he couldn't stay silent any longer. Something about Earth, the way its people seemed to unite in the face of danger, had struck a chord deep within him. It reminded him of stories from his own childhood. Tales of courage and resilience passed down through generations. Slowly, Kale began to wonder if humanity wasn't as primitive as they had always assumed. One evening, as the rest of the crew worked frantically to repair the damaged systems, Kale decided to act. He approached Rylak cautiously, knowing full well the risk of challenging his commander's authority. "Sir," he said, his voice steady but respectful, "I need to speak with you." Rylak turned sharply, his piercing gaze locking onto Kale. "What is it now?" he snapped. "If you're going to suggest we retreat again, save your breath." "No, sir," Kale replied quickly. "But I think we need to reconsider our strategy. The humans, they're not what we thought. Their barrier, it's not just technology. It's tied to their emotions, their collective willpower. If we keep pushing, we'll only make it stronger." Rylak's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting we surrender to them?" "Not surrender," Kale corrected, "but maybe understand. If we can learn more about how the barrier works, we might find a way to bypass it without causing harm." For a moment, Rylak said nothing. His eyes narrowed as he studied Kale, searching for signs of weakness or hesitation. Finally, he let out a low growl. "Fine, do what you must, but don't waste my time." Kale nodded, relief washing over him. As soon as he was dismissed, he gathered a small group of like-minded crew members and began analyzing the data they had collected. Together, they pieced together fragments of information, trying to decode the messages embedded in the barrier. What they discovered shocked them. The symbols weren't just warnings, they were invitations. Invitations to observe, to listen, to see humanity for who they truly were on Earth. Emma Hayes sat in her office, staring at the latest satellite readings. Her grandfather, William, sat across from her, leafing through a stack of papers covered in notes and diagrams. Both of them looked exhausted, their faces pale from lack of sleep. For days, they had been monitoring the Varnic fleet's movements, watching as the aliens probed the barrier with increasing desperation. Despite the tension, there was a sense of hope in the air. Humanity had responded to the threat with unity and determination, and the barrier was stronger than ever. "We need to communicate with them," Emma said suddenly, breaking the silence. "If they're testing the barrier, maybe they're trying to figure out what it is. We have to show them that we're not afraid." William raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we do that?" "They're not exactly picking up the phone." Emma leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "We use radio signals, mathematical patterns, something simple enough for them to understand but meaningful enough to get their attention." William nodded slowly, considering the idea. "It's risky. If they misinterpret the message, it could escalate things." "It's worth the risk," Emma insisted. "We've already shown them that we're united. Now we need to prove that we're willing to talk." With William's support, Emma got to work drafting a message. She collaborated with Daniel and Lavra, incorporating elements of their research into the transmission. The final product was a series of mathematical sequences combined with images of Earth's beauty mountains, oceans, forests, and cities. Embedded within the signal was a single phrase, repeated over and over: "We are here, we mean no harm." When the message was ready, Emma transmitted it into space, aiming directly at the Varnic fleet. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, the aliens responded, back aboard the Varnic flagship, Kale watched in awe as the message appeared on their monitors. The mathematical patterns were familiar, a universal language understood by most advanced civilizations. But it was the images that caught his attention. They depicted a world teeming with life, vibrant and diverse. There were scenes of people working together, celebrating, creating art, and caring for one another. It was unlike anything Kale had expected from a species they had dismissed as chaotic and violent. This changes everything, Kale whispered. His voice filled with wonder. Relax stormed onto the bridge, demanding to know what was happening. When Kale explained the message, the commander's expression hardened. "A trick," he muttered. "They're trying to deceive us." "No, sir," Kale argued. "Look at the images. Look at what they're showing us. This isn't deception, it's honesty. They're inviting us to see them for who they really are." Reluk hesitated, torn between his instincts and the evidence in front of him. Finally, he barked an order. "Send a response. Tell them we're watching." As the Varnik's reply reached Earth, Emma and her team scrambled to decode it. The message was brief but clear. "We see you." It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark hope. For the first time, humanity had established contact with an alien species not through violence but through communication. Meanwhile, tensions aboard the Varnik fleet were reaching a boiling point. Many of the crew members had begun to question Relax's leadership, especially after witnessing the humanity displayed in the Earthlings' message. Kale took advantage of the growing unrest, secretly recording interactions between humans and sharing them with his fellow crew members. The videos showed acts of kindness, creativity, and resilience, qualities that resonated deeply with the Varnik, who had long valued strength and efficiency above all else. "These humans, they're not what we thought?" Cyril whispered during one of their secret meetings. "They're flawed, yes, but also beautiful." "How can we justify attacking them?" Kale nodded solemnly. "We can't, and if we try, the barrier will stop us anyway. It's not just protecting them, it's protecting us too." Word of Kale's efforts spread quickly among the crew, sparking a wave of dissent. Some remained loyal to Relak, believing that retreat would be seen as weakness. Others sided with Kale, convinced that continuing the invasion would doom both species. The division grew so severe that it threatened to tear the fleet apart. Relak, sensing the rebellion brewing beneath the surface, called an emergency meeting. Standing before the assembled crew, he addressed them with a mixture kappa. The tension aboard the Varnik flagship reached a breaking point. Commander Relak stood at the center of the bridge, his sharp eyes scanning the faces of his crew. Some looked away, avoiding his gaze, while others stared back defiantly. The air was thick with unease, and the hum of the ship's system seemed louder than usual. Relak clenched his fist, trying to maintain control over the situation. He had always prided himself on being a strong leader, but now, for the first time, he felt the weight of doubt pressing down on him. "We are here to complete our mission," Relak began, his voice firm but tinged with frustration. "We have traveled far, risked much, and faced challenges that would have broken lesser beings. Are we going to let a primitive species stand in our way?" Kale stepped forward, his heart pounding. He knew this moment would come sooner or later. "Sir," he said, his tone respectful but unwavering, "the humans are not what we thought. Their barrier isn't just technology, it's tied to their emotions, their willpower. Every attempt to attack has only made it stronger. If we keep pushing, we'll destroy ourselves." Relak's face darkened. "Are you suggesting we abandon our mission after everything we've done?" "No, sir," Kale replied quickly. "I'm suggesting we rethink our approach. The humans want to communicate. They've shown us their world, their lives, their hopes. Maybe it's time we listened." A murmur rippled through the crew. Some nodded in agreement, while others shifted uncomfortably. Sierra, standing near the back, spoke up. "Kale is right. We can't keep ignoring the evidence. The barrier isn't just a shield, it's a reflection of who they are. If we fight them, we're fighting something we don't understand." Relak's jaw tightened. He wanted to lash out, to silence the dissent, but he couldn't deny the truth in their words. The barrier had resisted every weapon, every tactic. Even their most advanced technology had failed. For the first time in his life, Rilek felt powerless. But he wasn't ready to admit defeat, not yet. "Fine," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "If you think communication is the answer, then prove it. Send another message. Tell them we're willing to talk, but if they try to deceive, yes, there will be consequences." Kale nodded, relief washing over him. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a step in the right direction. As soon as Rilek dismissed the crew, Kale gathered his allies and began drafting a response. Together they crafted a message that was simple yet meaningful. "We see you, we hear you, let us understand." On Earth, Emma Hayes sat in her office, staring at the screen as the Varnak's reply appeared. Her heart raced as she read the words, her mind struggling to process what they meant. Humanity had always dreamed of making contact with extraterrestrial life, but no one had imagined it would happen like this under the shadow of conflict. "With so much at stake, they're willing to talk," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. With a mix of excitement and fear, William, sitting beside her, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "This is good news." "It means they're listening, but what do we say next?" Emma asked, glancing at her grandfather. "How do we convince them that we're not a threat?" William smiled faintly. "By showing them who we really are. Not just our strength, but our compassion, our creativity, our resilience. That's what makes us human." Emma nodded, determination replacing her earlier uncertainty. She reached out to Daniel and Leva, who were still working tirelessly to study the barrier. Together they devised a bold plan, a global broadcast designed to showcase humanity's best qualities. Music, art, science, and stories of triumph. Over adversity would be transmitted into space, accompanied by images of people from all walks of life. The goal was simple: to demonstrate that humanity was more than its flaws, that it was worth understanding and respecting. As preparations for the broadcast got underway, cities around the world lit up with activity. Musicians performed symphonies. Artists painted murals and scientists shared their discoveries. People gathered in public spaces, holding hands, singing songs, and sharing messages of hope. The barrier shimmered brighter than ever, feeding off the collective energy of billions of hearts and minds. When the broadcast finally aired, the effect was breathtaking. Satellites captured footage of Earth glowing beneath a protective veil of light, the colors shifting and pulsing in sync with the emotions of its people. The transmission reached the Varnak fleet moments later, flooding their monitors with sights and sounds that left them speechless. Kale watched in awe as the images unfolded before him. There were scenes of families laughing together, doctors saving lives, farmers tending fields, and children playing in the streets. Music filled the air, melodies that transcended language and culture, speaking directly to the soul. For the first time, Kale saw humanity not as an enemy, but as a species capable of beauty and wonder. This is incredible," Sira murmured, tears streaming down her face. "How could we have misunderstood them so completely?" Rilek stood silently in the corner, his expression unreadable. The anger and frustration that had consumed him for days were slowly giving way to something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or even admiration. He had spent his entire life believing in the superiority of the Varnak, but now, faced with the undeniable truth of humanity's potential, he found himself questioning everything he had ever known. Back on Earth, Emma and her team monitored the Varnak's reaction to the broadcast. At first, there was silence, a tense, nerve-wracking pause that seemed to stretch on forever. Then, suddenly, the aliens responded. Their message was brief but powerful. "We see you, we understand." Emma let out a shaky breath, tears welling up in her eyes. "They get it," she whispered. "They finally get it." William smiled, his weathered face lighting up with pride. "You did it, Emma. You showed them who we are." But the victory wasn't without its challenges. While many aboard the Varnak fleet had been moved by the broadcast, others remained skeptical. A faction loyal to Rilek argued that the humans were manipulating them, using their emotions against them. Tensions flared once again, threatening to tear the crew apart. Kale, sensing the danger, took matters into his own hands. He called another secret meeting, rallying those who believed in peace. "If we don't act now, this mission will end in disaster," he told them. "We have a choice: follow a relaxed path of destruction, or forge a new one that honors what we've learned." His words struck a chord with the crew. Slowly but surely, support for Kale grew until even some of Relax's closest allies began to waver. When the commander called another meeting, he was met with resistance unlike anything he had ever faced. "You're leading us to ruin," one officer shouted, his voice filled with anger. "We can't trust these humans." "And what about you?" Kale countered, stepping forward. "Have you even tried to understand them? Or are you too afraid to admit they might be better than us?" The room erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as arguments broke out. Relic tried to regain control, but it was clear his authority was slipping. In the end, it was Kale who brought the debate to a close. "Enough!" he bellowed, his voice cutting through the noise. "We came here seeking answers, and now we have them. The humans aren't our enemies. They're our teachers. If we refuse to learn, then we deserve whatever fate awaits us." The crew fell silent, the weight of Kale's words sinking in. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, one by one, they began to nod in agreement. Even Relic, though visibly shaken, offered no further protest. In the days that followed, the Varnek fleet retreated slightly, pulling back from the edge of human territory. They continued to observe Earth from afar, their weapons powered down, their intentions unclear. But for the first time, there was hope, a fragile, delicate hope that peace might be possible on Earth. Life returned to normal as it could be after such an extraordinary event. People celebrated the success of the broadcast, hailing Emma and her team as heroes. Yet amidst the joy, there was also a sense of responsibility. Humanity had proven its strength, but it had also revealed its vulnerabilities. The barrier was a gift, yes, but it was also a reminder of the power of unity and compassion. As Emma stood on a hill overlooking the city, her grandfather by her side, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. The stars twinkled above, distant and mysterious, but no longer frightening. Whatever the future held, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity had taken its first step toward becoming part of something greater, and somewhere far beyond. The Varnik watched silently, their thoughts hidden but their actions clear. They had come seeking conquest, but instead they had found understanding. It wasn't the outcome they had expected, but perhaps in time it would be the one they needed. The Varnek fleet lingered at the edge of human territory, their ships silent and still against the vast backdrop of space. For days they had observed Earth from afar, their weapons powered down and their intentions unclear. Commander Relic stood on the bridge, his sharp gaze fixed on the glowing barrier that separated them from the blue planet below. His mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts, anger, frustration, curiosity, and something else he couldn't quite name. Pride? Humility? He wasn't sure. All he knew was that the humans had changed everything. Kale approached him cautiously, knowing how volatile Relax's mood had become. "Sir," he said softly, breaking the silence. "What are your orders?" Relic turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "Orders," he repeated, his voice low and bitter. "What orders could I possibly give now? We've been humbled by a species we thought was beneath us." Kale hesitated, unsure how to respond. "It's not about being humbled, sir, it's about learning. The humans showed us something we didn't expect. They showed us strength through unity, power through compassion. Maybe this is a chance for us to grow." Relax stared at Kale for a long moment, his piercing eyes searching for any sign of weakness or doubt, but all he saw was sincerity. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his own pride. "You're right," he admitted reluctantly. "We came here seeking conquest, but instead we found understanding. Tell the crew to prepare for departure." Kale's heart leapt with relief. "Yes, sir," he said, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'll inform everyone immediately." As the news spread throughout the fleet, a wave of quiet satisfaction washed over the crew. Many had doubted Rilak's willingness to listen, but now, it seemed, he had finally seen reason. The decision to leave wasn't just an act of retreat, it was a gesture of respect, a recognition of humanity's worth. Before departing, Kale made one final transmission to Earth. The message was simple yet profound. Thank you for showing. You as who you are, we will remember. It wasn't signed or formalized, but its meaning was clear. Humanity had earned the Varnick's respect, even if they would never fully understand each other. On Earth, Emma Hayes sat in her office, staring at the screen as the Varnock's farewell message appeared. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words, her mind struggling to process what they meant. Humanity had faced its first real test against an alien threat and passed. Not through violence or aggression, but through connection and understanding. This changes everything, Emma whispered, her voice filled with awe. She turned to her grandfather William, who sat beside her, his weathered face glowing with pride. You did it, Emma, he said, his tone warm and reassuring. You showed them that we're more than just a species capable of destruction. You showed them what it means to be human. Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. But it wasn't just me. It was everyone. Billions of people came together, united by hope and courage. Without them, none of this would have been possible. William smiled faintly. That's exactly the point. Humanity isn't defined by individuals. It's defined by the connections we share, the love we give, and the sacrifices we make for one another. That's what the barrier taught us. Emma leaned back in her chair, letting the weight of William's words sink in. The barrier wasn't just a shield. It was a reflection of humanity's essence. Its power came not from technology or force, but from emotions, hope, resilience, compassion. And now, thanks to the Varnick's visit, humanity had learned to appreciate those qualities in ways they never had before. In the weeks that followed, life on Earth began to return to normal as it could be after such an extraordinary event. People celebrated the success of the broadcast, hailing Emma and her team as heroes. Cities around the world held festivals, concerts, and public gatherings to honor the unity that had saved them. Yet, amidst the joy, there was also a sense of responsibility. Humanity had proven its strength, but it had also revealed its vulnerabilities. The barrier was a gift, yes, but it was also a reminder of the power of unity and compassion. Daniel and Lavra continued their research, determined to unlock the secrets of the barrier. They worked tirelessly in their lab, analyzing data and running experiments. What they discovered amazed them. The barrier wasn't static. It evolved, growing stronger or weaker depending on humanity's collective emotional state. Acts of kindness, creativity, and selflessness bolstered its strength, while fear, hatred, and division weakened it. This changes how we think about ourselves, Daniel said one evening, leaning back in his chair. The barrier isn't just protecting us, it's teaching us. It's showing us what truly matters. Lavra nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. And it's not just about survival, it's about becoming better, stronger, kinder. Their findings sparked a global movement. People everywhere began to focus on fostering connections, spreading positivity, and working toward common goals. Governments collaborated on projects to combat climate change, poverty, and inequality. Artists created works that celebrated diversity and unity. Scientists shared knowledge freely, hoping to inspire future generations. Humanity had faced the unknown and emerged stronger not because of weapons or technology, but because of the bonds they had forged with one another. Far above, the Varnick fleet drifted silently through space, their journey home marked by reflection and introspection. For the first time in their history, they had encountered a species capable of resisting them, not through brute force, but through emotion and willpower. The experience had left an indelible mark on every member of the crew. Kale spent hours replaying the images and sounds transmitted by the humans. Each scene filled him with wonder and admiration. He realized now why no species had ever entered human territory. It wasn't because of fear or hostility, it was because humanity deserved respect. Their strength lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their ability to unite, to care, To create beauty out of chaos, Syrah joined him one evening, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think we'll ever come back?" she asked, her voice soft. Kale smiled faintly. "Maybe someday. But if we do, it won't be as conquerors, it'll be as friends." Syrah nodded, her eyes shining with hope. "I'd like that." The Varnect disappeared into the depths of space. Earth glowed faintly beneath its protective veil. Alien ships lingered far beyond, watching silently. They finally understood why no species entered human territory, and perhaps someday they might dare to ask permission. Emma stood on a hill overlooking the city, her grandfather by her side. The stars twinkled above, distant and mysterious, but no longer frightening. Whatever the future held, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity had taken its first step toward becoming part of something greater. "We've only just begun," Emma said quietly, her voice filled with determination. William placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "And wherever we go from here, we'll face it together." Together they gazed up at the night sky, marveling at the unity displayed during the crisis. Though challenges lay ahead, they felt confident in humanity's ability to overcome them. The experience had shown that strength does not come from weapons or technology, but from connection and compassion. In the final moments, the camera pans out to reveal Earth glowing faintly beneath its protective veil. Alien ships linger far beyond, watching silently. They finally understand why no species enters human territory, and perhaps someday they may dare to ask permission.